Okay, Mario, we discussed the prohibition of theft. What is your opinion on this topic?
Hi Robert, nice to meet you again. Generally from my Christian part of life, of course, theft was one of 10 commandments, which was, of course, prescribing that the theft is the sin. So since I moved my beliefs from Christianity, I'm kind of a little bit focused on Buddhism, although I don't follow Buddhism in that totally in details, but I would like to maybe describe a few thoughts from Buddhist perspectives, as always. So in Buddhism they have they call it like the 5 precepts, or sometimes they call it like the 5 rules of training. They don't call it like a prohibition or commandment. They call it like a precepts or the 5 rules of training, and they represent like the basic code of ethics to be respected by followers of Buddhism. On the first place is they're meant to be followed by lay followers, but later, of course, from the monks as well. So they are like commitments, as I said, rather than prohibitions, to abstain from first killing living beings, second stealing. So it comes immediately after killing. Third, abstaining from sexual misconduct. Fourth is abstaining from lying, and fifth is intoxication. So the purpose of those commitments or those rules of training is that they're meant to develop mind and character to make progress on the path of enlightenment. So they form the basics of several parts of Buddhist doctrine, both for lay and monastic people. So usually their fundamental role has been compared to those of 10 commandments, or let's say in the East, the ethical codes of Confucianism. Also on the West, that precepts have been compared with human rights, because they have a quite universal nature. Even some scholars, I found it's very interesting. Some scholars argue they can complement the concept of human rights. So they are considered as the minimum. They are not like a top of the top in Buddhism, but they are explained as a minimal standard of Buddhist morality. So the second one, as I said, was the prohibit of theft or stealing, but that moral doesn't stop there. They also prohibit or a rule that prohibition should extend to all related activities, such as let's say fraud or forgery or something like that. And even they generally explain it as abstain from taking what is not given. But also they don't say like that is kind of sin. They don't have a concept of sin, but they don't say that this is like a only thing. But they connect it with virtues, such as generosity or renunciation, which is actually related to a property rights in human rights theory. So they add that behavior is how to say positive traits, or the behavior to protect your own property, but also protect the other people's properties. So it's kind of not just prohibition of theft, but all style of life in relation to the property or what is not given to you. The severity of the theft, so if that happens, is judged by the worth of the owner, which is interesting, and the worth of that which is stolen. So actually they have some scale on which they judge the severity of that deed. And as I said, it's not just about theft. They also consider the same thing as a theft, like underhand dealings, imagine, or fraud, or cheating, or forgery. And in addition, they say also similar to theft is gambling. And what is interesting that there was a study in Thailand. Thailand is mostly Buddhist country, and they are ruled by Theravada Buddhism, which is one school of Buddhism. And one psychologist in Thailand did studies in 2000s and 2010s, and he discovered that people who did not adhere to these 5 precepts, they are more often tended to believe that money was the most important goal in life. Imagine. So interesting. And those people would more often pay bribes, so the study shown, they would more often pay bribes than people who did adhere to those precepts. On the other hand, the people who observed those 5 precepts regarded themselves as wealthier and happier than people who didn't observe that precepts. So which is very interesting. So he did study who shown that there is a benefit from following those rules. Also, what they put in the same basket is are professions who are violating the theft rule, which is gambling industry, as I said already. And imagine this, which is, I think you will find it very interesting: marketing of products that are not actually required for the customer. Can you imagine that? So if somebody is persuading you that you need to buy something, this is also considered kind of a theft, because you don't need that product, but they are tricking you to buy it with all that marketing actions and whatever they do to persuade us to buy something which actually we don't need. So that's from my perspective. It was very interesting for me to find how they convey that knowledge or rules in terms of advice, or let's say advice or practice where people who follow Buddhism should commit to, and all in the favor of develop mind and character and make that path of enlightenment easier and more reachable. So that was from my side. What do you think about that?
Well, it is explained in Tractate Sanhedrin 56b that all of the 7 Noahide commandments can be exegetically derived from Genesis 2:16. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, which was stated to Adam in the Garden of Eden on the day of his creation. One of them is, of course, the prohibition of theft. Ramban on Genesis 6:2 explains why the generation of the flood was punished specifically because of theft, even though they violated all their commandments, because theft is a logical prohibition that no one can negate by saying, we did not know we were commanded. Rabbi Weiner explains in the Divine Code, 3rd edition, page 488, that an adult Gentile is warned about the prohibition of theft and can be subject to capital punishment in a court of law for this transgression. This applies to whether one forcefully robs or secretly steals money or any movable property or kidnaps a person or withholds the wages of his employee or other similar acts. The act of rape also includes a prohibition of theft because it steals a woman's state of mind and her honor. In Judaism, there is no set minimum amount for the prohibition of theft. Even if a Gentile stole the smallest amount of money that a person would be concerned about, he is guilty of the capital sin of theft. A Gentile who steals money or an object from another person is obligated to return it. Why? Within the 7 Noahide commandments, each one has a negative aspect. Negative aspect means don't do this, do not do that, and so on, right? At the same time, each one has a positive aspect. So returning stolen objects is a positive aspect of the prohibition of theft. In Judaism, wars of aggressive conquest over other nations are forbidden as theft for Gentile governments. A well-known modern example is Russia. She has been stealing Ukrainian land since 2014. And I know sometimes this apparently is controversial to say, at least in the Jewish circles I was in, where a good few of my Jewish friends disagreed with this argument. But make no mistake about it, this war of aggressive conquest is forbidden as theft. And I believe that whoever claims otherwise misrepresents the Torah of Moses. In Judaism, also, a valid copyright is a true right, and it is forbidden to steal it, or to copy the item that is copyrighted without the copyright owner's permission. This is subject to the legal limitations on copyrights that the courts of the land have established. Now, I want to read an article by Stanford University's Hoover Institution called "Why Shoplifting is Now De Facto Legal in California." It says, just a second, okay, it says, Google shoplifting in San Francisco and you will find more than 100,000 hits. And you will find lots of YouTube videos where you can watch a single thief or an entire gang walk into an SF Walgreens or CVS and empty the shelves. Most walk in, go about their pilfering, and then walk out, though at least one thief rode their bike into the store and departed the same way, carefully navigating their two-wheeler down a narrow aisle. We probably shouldn't call it shoplifting anymore, since that term connotes the idea of a person trying to conceal their crime. In San Francisco, there is no attempt to conceal theft, and there is almost never any effort by store employees, including security personnel, to confront the thieves. The most they do is record the thefts with their cell phones. Believe it or not, right? Why is shoplifting so rampant? Because state law holds that stealing merchandise worth $950 or less is just a misdemeanor, which means that law enforcement probably won't bother to investigate, and if they do, prosecutors will let it go. Why won't store employees do anything about this theft? Because they don't want to take the risk. I doubt many would, knowing that a Rite Aid employee was murdered recently after trying to stop two thieves. Moreover, a confrontation within the store risks harming not only store staff, but also customers. So employees are almost certainly instructed by their managers to do nothing. Because of this law, California is extending an open invitation to anyone to walk in and take. Just like that, since they know that police or prosecutors won't bother with a misdemeanor complaint and that store personnel won't stop them. It is not just pharmacies that are being ransacked. Recently, San Francisco's Neiman Marcus was targeted by thieves who had a hankering for designer handbags and hit the purse department hard. The video shows one after another, running out, as apparently there were 10 thieves, and they stole over the $950 per thief misdemeanor limit. This video gives a whole new meaning to the term curbside pickup, which is the door that the thieves departed from before they jumped into getaway vehicles. And if you are one of those who identify Neiman Marcus with needless markup, well, now you know. Those markups help cover the cost of theft insurance and stolen merchandise, costs that are passed on to those who choose to acquire merchandise the old-fashioned way, by paying for it. Governor Newsom recently signed a new law in which shoplifting is a felony, even if it is below the 950 limit, if, and this is a big if, the theft is part of an organized ring with the intent to sell the stolen goods. Sadly, this may have little effect on shoplifting, given that most of these thefts are by individuals rather than groups. And it will still be up to police and prosecutors to charge these as felonies. What is needed is a change to the state law that makes shoplifting at a much lower dollar level a felony, to provide adequate incentives to individuals not to commit these crimes. End quote, and end of the article. Because I ended high school in California, I am disappointed by the situation there. I'm personally very disappointed by my California. And on the other hand, it does not surprise me. The prohibition of theft is a religious concept. It has meaning in a religious context only. It does not have meaning in a secular society like California. So that is the tragic reality of a state which I would like to see being number one, and which realistically was number one for so many years and decades.
I agree with you. It's very sad how once so developed and forward, I cannot say forward thinking, but let's say advanced part of the world just lost their values and degraded so fast into almost oblivion. It's ridiculous. I cannot understand when I listen to them. I cannot understand what is the point of raising that limit for shoplifting value, or value of stolen goods. What is the benefit for the society? I cannot understand the pros or cons, or what is the point of not keeping the values of other people or property or whatever on the normal level. I cannot really understand. What is your if we already talk about California, what is your thought on their policies? How that could happen?
Well, I cannot imagine, because the prohibition of theft is probably the most logical prohibition you can have. I cannot imagine that someone was so stupid to believe that nobody would misuse that law to steal goods and other merchandise. So I cannot believe that anyone would be so stupid to sincerely think that nobody would misuse the law. And on the other hand, if their intention was evil, maybe, I don't know. I don't know their hearts. I do not know their intentions, right? So maybe it's possible their intention was evil from the beginning, and they intentionally decided to ruin the state of California by de facto legalizing theft. I don't know. That's probably more possible than the argument that someone was so stupid not to realize what the outcome would be.
And even if people complain, they still defend that kind of policy, right?
Well, I read the article. You heard what I read, so yes. It's a nightmare. It's a situation which is it's a nightmarish situation, and because I'm so personally connected with California, it really affects me deeply, and it's tragic. It's tragic, and I remember that you and I discussed privately how some other Eastern European major cities which were once far behind California are now actually better than California. They're better certainly than San Francisco, right? They're safer. We do not legalize. We did not legalize theft, of course. So theft is forbidden in Eastern Europe for now. and it's a situation which is objectively better than San Francisco is in now.
Exactly. Yeah, that is what I cannot understand and comprehend how the U.S. actually moved that liberty, so-called liberty, into actually chaos and total lack of accountability. I cannot understand what kind of people are driving that country. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to live in this like third world country where everything people would be ashamed if they steal something. It's not about just about the law, but it's about how the society and other people, your peers in society, would look at you. Let's say I live in Bangkok. I can openly park my motorcycle anywhere. I can let my helmet on the motorcycle without locking, without anything. Nobody would ever touch it because they would be very ashamed if somebody see them stealing the helmet, which is actually worth nothing. So that is kind of cultural thing. Even I actually have never seen that somebody attacked somebody on the street or taken their phone or whatever. It's almost impossible. I guess those things maybe happen in the night, in maybe nightclubs and some suspicious parts of like everywhere, of Bangkok. But in daily life, I was traveling many times in the metro and totally crowded. People are all around you. Nobody has ever touched me or tried to steal from my pocket or whatever. But I mean, it's almost unimaginable that would happen here. So yeah,
I live in Zagreb, and I remember reading at least one article in English about how statistically Croatia is the safest country in Europe when it comes to walking alone during the night in Europe somewhere. So I also cannot imagine, I really cannot imagine the kind of chaos which must exist in California now.
I believe so, and that just shows that even you have high tech development, or you are very advanced, maybe capital intensive country, without moral values, either religion or ethics or whatever, the society just falls apart. So yeah.
Yes, I agree with you, and I think we should end it here. Although it's a tragic note, but we don't really have much optimism to offer our Californian listeners.
Well, what I can say, it's only about the person. We all compose the society, so we all contribute. So we can only work on ourselves, and we cannot be responsible for other people's mischief or whatever. But we can know how to vote. We can know what to do. Even move from California if there is such a disastrous culture. But I remember, I don't want to broaden this to other things, but my friend, old-time friend, he died a few years ago. He was living in Miami, in Florida, a long time ago, maybe a few decades ago, and he told me that time the US was fantastic, He gained so much capital living and working there, and he said he had never seen the best organized and working society, especially since he moved to live and work there from ex-Yugoslavia. So he said unimaginable order and at the same time freedoms he experienced.
Yes, I agree. I remember that was my experience when I studied in America. So because I'm an American alumnus, I also what attracted me to the American educational system is the kind of reputation America had 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, right? So this is I agree with your friend.
Yeah, I couldn't. When he told me some details, I couldn't imagine that I lived in that kind of country, because that was still after war, Croatia. So I mean, it was impressive. But look at this, in 20 years from then, the US just fell apart. It's I cannot comprehend it. It's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, Mario, thank you so much for your time.
Likewise, thank you too.
And I look forward to our next discussion.
Same as me.
We are Godless Judaism.
We discuss atheism, religion, and everything else.